Hello, welcome to In Your Ear Radio. I am your host, Latoya. Very happy to be with you today. It's a beautiful Saturday, nice and warm in Las Vegas. With the some of the relief of the stay-at-home measures, more people are out. Not a whole lot, but it's pretty cool. It's people starting to socialize more and visit and hang out and do whatever they do. Me, I'm still in the house. Still in the house. Listen, is it just me or anybody else? Like, as soon as I get a sniffle or itchy throat, I start thinking I got the COVID. Like, is it just me? I need to know because I don't know. Am I a hypochondriac or what's going on with me? So, y'all let me know. And thank you guys who are watching on Facebook Live and YouTube. We got a lot to talk about today, as usual. I got one of my day ones that'll be joining in on the conversation. You guys are also welcome to share your thoughts as well. So please do. We're going to be discussing. We're going to be discussing white allies. That's what we're going to start off talking about today. We're also going to talk about protesting, and I want to know if you're letting your kids go out and protest. So I'm just trying to make sure I'm live so that I can share this with everybody, and then we'll dig into the conversation. Again, you can always watch any In Your Ear Radio show on YouTube at In Your Ear Radio. Feel free to tell your friends, and if you enjoy the show, hit the like button and let us know. We appreciate that as well. So, okay, I got this set up now. I'm just going to share and boom. So, again, I'm gonna bring up my girl, Miss Trish, who's gonna be discussing the topics with us as well. And again, we have a lot to talk about. So, hey, Miss Trish, how you doing here?
Hey.
I'm trying to multitask, and y'all know I'm analog, but I get it together. I consider myself doing a lot better than I have. I don't know what I just did. Did I go away?
No, I see.
I hit the screen. My computer screen is touch screen, so when I touch something happens here. Yeah, okay. So anyway, y'all, welcome to In Your Ear Radio. Again, I am Latoya, and I got my girl, Miss Trish, who has her own podcast, Pieces of She. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, this is a crazy time.
It is a crazy time. Tell us a little bit about your podcast.
Pieces of She podcast. The She in Pieces of She stands for shared human experience. And I really just like to get information on different people's life experiences and how they became the person that they are. So I just really like to understand people, hear about what people have been through, and just talk to them. I like to talk to people. So
Yeah.
anybody can come on. I do have themes for my
Mhm.
different seasons. Right now, I'm on a break. My next season is not going to start up until July. And I think I really want to talk about race relations, being that, this is where we are in America.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a very hot topic, and I'm very interested to see, the diversity and the perspectives of different people of different races. So, I'm looking forward to it, and I definitely want to be a part of it. So, congratulations on your show. I know I enjoy watching it, and I look forward to next season. When does your next
Thank
season
you.
start up?
Probably the first week of July.
First week of July. Okay, got it, got it. So, it's a lot going on in the news. I just first want to open up by talking about voting here in Nevada. If you guys aren't aware, the primaries are in effect. You can still drop off your ballot in person at whatever locations are available to you here in Nevada by 7 p.m. on June 9th. And then if you're mailing in your ballot, it must be postmarked by June 9th and received by June 16th at 5 p.m. So I think I'm going to drop mine off, and I'm feeling like it might get there for sure if I just drop it off. I don't know. I'm just feeling some kind of way with this president in
No,
effect.
I dropped mine off.
You dropped it off?
So yeah, and I understand what you're feeling because
Yeah.
he's trying to defund the post office, for God's sake. So who knows if it's going to get there? But I took it down there, put it in the box myself, and I know it got there. So
That's right. So that's what I'm going to do too. And, voting matters, you guys. If you haven't been paying attention, a lot of changes are being made because people are voting. Shout out to the first Black mayor in Ferguson. Go ahead, Ella Jones.
Hey, okay.
She's the first Black mayor there. And this is on the heels of after the death of 18-year-old Mike Brown, who was shot and killed by police officers in 2014? And of course, nothing came of that as far as anyone being held accountable for his death. But since then, it has sparked a lot of people to get politically engaged in Ferguson. Initially, a lot of people didn't vote, but as far as those who wanted to be a part of the political process as a representative Ferguson, people did start stepping up to run for council, Black men and women, and mayor and seats of that sort. So it did spark people to at least want to be a part of the system and hopefully be a part of the solution, because it's definitely a problem and we know where it starts. The mayor is very effective in helping to change the laws when it comes to police brutality and holding police officers accountable. So that's cool. And she beat her opponent, Heather Robinette, by a mere 138 votes. So again, that's how close, it can come.
It matters.
It's crazy.
And just think, if 200 of us, Black people, let's just say, said, you know what, I'm not going to vote. My vote doesn't count. She would have lost.
Right. So. Right. Thanks for putting that into perspective, because that's exactly, it matters so much. So shout out to her, and I'm looking forward to seeing some changes in Ferguson. Joe Biden just put on Julian Castro, who was also running for president, if you guys don't remember, on his campaign for national police reform. So I think that's a good look, because that was one of the things that Julian ran on, is police reform. And he does have a well thought out, laid out agenda that could help, simmer some of this police brutality that's going on in the country. So I just wanted to shout out Joe Biden for, being conscious of what's needed and bringing on, trying his best to bring on the right people to represent the needs of all of America, not just some of America, but all of America. This is a very big issue, especially for Black America and for those who are allies of the Black community. 57 police officers quit in Buffalo after 2 officers were suspended for brutally injuring the 75-year-old man, if you guys haven't seen that.
I saw that. I heard that they didn't quit. They quit the emergency portion of it. But my thing is, this is part of your fucking job. So right. If you feel like you can't do this piece of your job, then you can't do your job. And I think they should be released of their duties, period.
I think so too. And I think that's probably the next step. And again, this is a form of protest. For those who think that when you envision protesting, just going into the streets and marching, or in some cases, some people are rioting and looting, just walking away from your position is showing an act of protest, showing that you do not agree with what's happening, what's going on. Listen, you're going to knock down a 75-year-old man to the point that he is really injured, and you think that's okay? It's time to start shaking.
Bleeding on the sidewalk.
Bleeding.
And there are stiffer laws for messing with the elderly people.
Oh, yes. Bless your heart. Yeah, there are stiffer. It's a felony offense. So I wonder, will they be charged? That's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up. It is a felony offense to cause harm or, physical harm to a senior citizen. So there's another step. So I'm definitely going to be following that story. But I just thought that was interesting that now police officers are pushing back, per se, because they don't agree with being reprimanded. So how long do you think, these bad apples should be able to just be in these streets and, inflicting harm on people and not be held accountable? Just get a little write-up in internal affairs and move on. I mean, don't you want the bad apples out too?
They're not bad apples. They're murderers sometimes, and they assault, and they're a lot of them are thugs. The bad apples. I'm gonna say bad apples nice, but a lot of thugs.
A lot of thugs. Sure. A lot of thugs and people that just so used to just being able to get away with whatever they get away with, that they don't even think twice about doing anything. Anytime you push in, we've seen this all over social media, older senior citizen Black women too being pushed around, pushed to the ground, handcuffed, just roughed up, treated in a way that they don't need to be treated. And it says something to the character of any man or woman who would be that aggressive towards someone of that age. I mean, it just says a lot about you, period, police officer or not. So, whatever. But I think that's quite interesting that they stepped away. And I hope that those 57 can go ahead and be let go. If they got somewhere better to be, where they feel like they can do their shenanigans, that's probably where they should.
That's part of their job. So if you right now at your job told your boss, oh, I'll do everything except for call people back. I don't like calling people back. Guess what your boss is going to tell you? Okay, well, that's part of your job. That's in your job description. So if you can't do that, then we're going to find somebody who can. Yeah.
Bye. Exactly. But this is the only place where you have a license to kill and cause harm and not be held accountable. It's very hard to get a police officer charged for doing something that anyone in the civilian world does. It's automatic, zero tolerance or some type of they're being reprimanded in some kind of way. So this is like the only position where you can just go in and just have, just fool whatever you want to do to anybody and try to get me, see if you can get me in trouble. It's like, yeah, see what happens. So, yeah, I don't know about all that, but yeah. And then I'm seeing they have this, they did a mural on the streets in DC. It says Black Lives Matter. You guys see that?
I saw that.
Is that real? I checked it, but I'm just like, is it really real? Because that is quite interesting. It's very, oh my. I mean, it's beautiful to see. It's beautiful to see. And then after I saw it, I started reading another post from a lady I follow, Afro State of Mind, where she was addressing the fact that, you can't just be comfortable with the shiny object in front of you and think that that's, cool. In my own words, watch out for wolves in sheep clothing, because at the same time, this mayor is, funding the 19 million to the police budget. So he's increasing the police budget by 19 million in the same city
as Black Lives Matter Road or whatever.
Right. So the school, it's the same city where he's going to offer 19 million to put the police force. The school wards are suffering majorly. They keep cutting the budgets, especially in 7 and 8, Ward 7 and 8. So my thing is, why isn't education a priority? And why do we think that we need so many police officers? Only 5% of violent crimes happen in the United States. That's 5% of the crime. So why are we spending so much money to police our people instead of educating them? So that's a cause for concern to me, to see that, so many people or the police officers are getting so much support financially, but the schools keep falling at the wayside. And and trying to say they renamed the street too, Black Lives Matter. So that's what Trump is pulling up to. But I just think that's interesting. And a lot of times we have to stay focused and stay woke, because, even with everything that's going on with this pandemic, with the these protests, it's a lot of laws that are still being changed that affect us, that we don't see because our focus is on what's in front of us, a shiny object that's dangling in front of us. So, it's a hard life to live. It really is here in the United States, because you want to trust your government. You want to, have faith in your government. But at the same time, there's some sneaky bastards. There's a lot going on behind our backs. With this situation, I think is a prime example. You go and put Black Lives Matter on the street, but ask yourself, why are you putting so much money into policing and defunding schools, defunding education?
Well, this country has been that way. I mean, if you think about abolishing slavery, right? It was abolished, right? But then there were all these stipulations and rules and regulations, and so if you, it's too much. It's too much. Even okay, I'm gonna do voting. So yeah, everybody can vote. You guys can vote, but now you got to pass this test. But you don't have to take the test if your grandfather has already previously voted. Well, damn well my grandfather hasn't previously voted if I'm Black, because he wasn't allowed to. So basically, only Black people have to take the test. You know what I mean?
I mean,
So
even they were asking them to count how many jelly beans were in a jar to recite the Constitution, things that they couldn't even do.
right.
And we're going to talk about white privilege. There you go. Things that they couldn't even do. Guess how many jelly beans are in a jar, or maybe their grandfather didn't vote, or whatever the situation was. They made it required for us to do it. So once we fought and won our rights to vote, we still had to jump through hoops. It's no different from anything that's. And I say this to people all the time. That people think that we're free. They think that times have changed so much since before the civil rights, and only thing that's changed is maybe the way we look and dress, the way we're able to speak and walk in public. But as far as our rights, we're still here fighting for the same things that we were struggling with now. Voter suppression is still real. They're still trying to discourage people from voting, and they're still trying to suppress us and use this inferiority complex on us through policing, even in our educational system. All of these things that the people before experienced, this is still an experience that we're having right now. It's no different. People think that it's different because, again, we are able to do a little bit more. We got a little bit more freedom per se, but really, the more things change, the more things stay the same. We shouldn't still be out here fighting for equality. It should be human rights. That's what Malcolm X is fighting for. Went all the way to the United Nations to try to bring the United States to court because of the treatment that they were bringing, towards us. And I think that's something that needs to be brought up now. I think somebody mentioned it. I don't know if it was on the last show.
The United Nations recently, within the last couple of days, have written a letter to basically condemn the United States on their treatment of African American people. So it's happening.
Yeah.
So I don't know the details about it because it's so much information in the news. There's so much to read and get caught up on. I mean, honestly, you could spend your whole entire day researching everything that's going on in the world and still not scratch the surface. There's so much going on.
It's so much. Trish, I had to just decompress and just log off. And with the social media app, I have to delete it because it's an addiction. All you got to do is touch a little icon and everything, the whole world pops up, right? So right. I had to literally delete Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter because I would just compound it. Everything, every time you turn on apps, you look at these apps, somebody's getting beat, somebody's getting choked, somebody's getting pepper sprayed. I'm watching kids protesting, getting sprayed in the face with their hands up in the air. Like, it was just overwhelming. And I just was like, I gotta fall back. Shout out to GB who's watching. He said, "What's up, family? We see you. Thank you for tuning in." It's just overwhelming. So I had to fall back, and it was a much needed break. It was just a few days, maybe a week, 5-6 days, but it was enough to allow me to just
breathe
and watch some mindless stuff and not think about, what was going on around me, so that I can maintain my sanity and be of use to myself, if not my family and the people around me, and be able to regroup and think. So I definitely needed to breathe. And it's just so much going on. It's hard to believe this is actually real. We live in very surreal times, and I'm so overwhelmed. I really am, but I'm glad I took that break. I want to give a shout out to Governor Sisolak. When he had a public meeting at the, our Grant Sawyer State Office building, along with Attorney General Aaron Ford and State Assembly Speaker Jason Frierson, I think that's what his name, and Assemblywoman Danielle Monroe Moreno. And what really struck me, they had this meeting in the midst of the state of emergency that we're all in. As y'all know, it's been a lot of protests all over in Las Vegas for sure. A police officer is still fighting for his life. A young boy was it shot? Another person was shot, I think, by a police officer the same night that this occurred.
Yeah, that one, he passed.
He passed, yeah. It's just so much. How can you keep up? But sadly, that was going on, and the governor came out and had this, I guess, a town hall per se, to speak in regards to this. And what really got my attention was his quote. And he said, "As a white man, a privileged white man, I don't know what it's like to live in fear of police intolerance." He said, "But as a governor of the state of Nevada, it is my duty to help shepherd change on behalf of all Nevadans. And that should and would include policy change at the state level. And that's what I need to hear from our leaders. Like, you don't have to say, I understand if you don't understand. You don't have to say, this is, give your opinion, your conditioned opinion about a situation. Just be honest. And I like the fact that he identified himself as being a white man and understanding he was privileged. Like, people get so offended when you tell them that they have privilege. Like, it's a privilege to be in white skin. It was intended for you to have privilege in the United States. That's why they created race. That's why you were called white and we were called black. And mind you, many other of us were all looped into this as well. The Asian community, the Italian community, and the Hispanic community. We were all lumped into people of color versus white. And if you had that skin color, then you had advantages that people with a darker hue did not have. That's just the reality of it. That's just what it is. Do we like it? No. Some people do. Some people are saying, make America great again. Some people don't want to go back. They don't want to be replaced by the Jews. They're fighting for their existence. They think they're going extinct. Their white skin is going to disappear. And they have enjoyed the privileges to high degrees. So, this is what they're fighting for. They don't like the fact that we are getting, the privileges that they're getting. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It's crazy. I don't know how they wouldn't want to. I don't know the principles and everything of this country. I guess it sounds good. You know what I mean? The land of the free, the home of the brave, this and that and the other. But then you guys don't even want to acknowledge, let's say, Black soldiers that fought in World War I. You know? So I don't know. They come back for fighting for this country, and you treat them like trash. That's not right. So I don't know. I guess it sounds good to say that this is the best country, and we're everybody's equal, and we have a constitution that's everybody is inclusive. But yeah, they don't really want the truths of the Constitution to come to reality. Reality. They don't want it to be a reality. It just sounds good on paper.
And I think for the most part, I think these people are so wicked in their thoughts and their spirit and their minds and soul, thinking that we would treat them in the way that they have treated us over the lifespan that we've been here in the United States. I think that's their biggest fear, that if things change when we have the political, economic, and just overall majority power in this country, that we would treat them in the way that they treated us. And that's a hard pill to swallow. And I can understand why, so I get it. And that's why I wanted to talk about white allies. The funny thing is, when you reach out to people that that are considered white, they have an opinion, right? They have something to say, but not many of the people that I know personally, and I will say I have a lot of white friends per se. I work with white people that I consider, good people. I enjoy their company and whatnot, but as far as people that I hang out with on a regular basis, I can't really say that that's what part of my life. But reaching out to these people, and because you hear, everybody's like, this is awful, and you say, well, you want them to speak up and say, well, how is this affecting you, and what can you do, and how are you reaching back to your people to help them understand, why change needs to happen. You can't get them to come up and speak, and I'm just, disappointed in that, but I do understand at the same time. I really do, because people do have a lot to lose. It's not easy to let your voice be heard, especially if you're a white man or woman who has a very racist family. You have to go home. You got to go to Thanksgiving dinner and be around these people. And they didn't heard you say that all Black lives matter, and that all of us should, enjoy the fruits of freedom, justice, and equality. You still got your life to live. So I definitely get it. Shout out to Jane Elliott. Is she always on point? And if y'all don't know who she is, she's an American school teacher, former school teacher. She's all about anti-racism. She's an activist for anti-racism, and she's an educator. And she's known for the blue eye, brown eye experiment. And every time I've seen her have this experiment where she's talking about racism and reversing racism amongst white people, however she does it, be it the color of their eyes, hair, or just not allowing them to speak in her room unless they're considered a part of a certain group. These people either start crying or they get enraged. Like they are, I mean, it's amazing. And I want to play a little clip of what she had to say into a class. And while she's doing that, we'll just listen here. But this, I thought it was interesting to be able to share this with you guys.
Is it playing? I can't hear it.
You can't hear it?
I can't. Maybe, I don't know. I don't. Are people in the comments? Can they hear it?
Can't. Okay. I'm sorry. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. You can't hear it. Okay. We tested it out. We thought everybody could hear. I don't know what happened. So I apologize for that. But anyway, she was going on to just speak to, she can't hear. I'm getting feedback, people saying they can't hear. So I apologize. A very good audio, Jane Elliott speaking to how, basically saying that if you're white, you're racist. That's basically what she said. If you're a white person, you're racist. And I want to kind of break that down. I want to just kind of break that down because I know people get really offended when you tell a white person they're racist. That's the worst thing you can say to them. Even if they know for sure they're racist, they go home and call you all kind of damn words and make sure your application don't make it to the HR desk. You know what I'm saying? And beat you in the streets and say you had a gun when you didn't. Call them racist. That's as good as giving them a 2-piece and a biscuit. They don't want to hear that. So I just want
our President Bush put that in a book that was the worst thing. What was it? Kanye or somebody said about him that he was racist. He put that in a book.
You want to get under a white man's skin? Call him racist. But I mean, really, let's talk about it. Let's break it down. What is racism? I mean, I'm just saying. Anybody disagree that it's possible, that it's not possible for a white person to be a racist? I mean, think about what conditioning that we have going on in our world that we live in. We talk about cultural conditioning, and y'all know I love to bring up Mr. Joe Madison, who breaks down cultural conditioning, I think, in a divine way. So I don't need to say it any other way. And he says, in America, we are culturally conditioned to believe that white is superior, Black is inferior, and the manifestation of that cultural conditioning is that Black people are undervalued, underestimated, and marginalized. I think that sums it up. I think that sums it up in to the point, and that's what we are living through in our life. Where, like I said, we're still today fighting to just be treated equally, just to be treated equally. I mean, you see this lady Karen who's choking the crap out her dog and threatening to call the cops on a Black man and tell him that she's threatening to kill her. And everybody's going in on the fact her dog was taken away from her the next day, like no questions asked. But a Black man gets killed in the street, and the first thing we want to talk about is his criminal record. And I'm gonna say this, and like I said, I take nothing away from police officers who I'm not condoning shooting police officers and killing police officers, but I'm just gonna do a comparison, okay? A police officer is fighting for his life. The man who shot him has been apprehended. The police officer, they speak, good of him as they should. The man who shot him, nothing good is said, considering what he did. I can imagine, that of course that's not a good thing, but we don't have anything good to say. First thing you bring up is his criminal record, right? You talk about the fact that I think they said he had some type of offense, some criminal offense on his record. I don't know this police officer's background, and this is just a hypothetical example that I'm giving. Again, I hope that this man pulls through and I'm not condoning this violence, but I'm just giving you a comparison of how police officers and racism is in effect, and how they're given, they're treated like they came through immaculate conception. Okay. Some of these police officers that end up getting hurt or something happens, they got a long internal affair list. Okay. But when they're involved in an encounter with the civilian, you don't hear that story. You don't hear police officer so-and-so had 18 internal affair complaints against him. You hear he's fighting for his life. Okay. Which is understandable. But if you think about that, that taints your perception, because if you know, if the public is telling you something about someone who's being accused of harming another person, which happens to be a police officer, it kind of taints your perception of who this person is. We don't know everything that happened or why this happened, but we automatically have a way of thinking about this person. Oh, he used to smoke weed. Oh yeah, he slapped his girlfriend in 1988. He must be a bad guy. But imagine if we did the same thing on the other end, when a police officer, even being a so-called victim, if we pulled up his information, 7 years ago, he was accused of domestic violence, beating the crap out of his wife, or pedophilia, I don't know, just something. Would that taint our perception as well? So I think the media works really hard to try to make police officers look better than what they are. And that's the only point that I'm trying to make right now. And it's a form of conditioning.
It is a form of conditioning. And funny you should say that, because my husband actually was looking at and reading an article about the other 3 officers in the George Floyd case. And he was reading about their background and how their childhood, and, if they went to college, where they first worked at McDonald's and all this kind of stuff. And I'm looking at him like, you're just going to sit up there and read that? Forget them. Like, they're murderers. That's what they are.
Yeah. So that's a part of conditioning.
You're right.
And that's how racism works. If you've been conditioned all your life since day one, imagine, since we stepped foot on this grounds here, we've been treated like less than human. It was even in our Constitution that we were 3/5 of man, and we were only counted because the powers that be needed our vote to have more representation for their plantations, per se. So, we've always been perceived that way. And even after we were supposedly freed from being enslaved, we look at our school system, our educational system, that still conditions us to look at Black men, women, and children as less than, as inferior people. You look at the color Black, and it's dark, it's dirty, it's eerie, white, holy, pure, angelic. When you're reading certain things, if it's a cops and robbers, it's always a Black man being chased. Different things that you see from coming out of the womb and being taught certain things, from education to your job experience, whatever you're going through, conditions you to feel a certain way about yourself, and it conditions you to feel a certain way about other people. So it's a way, I think, you might not know that you're racist. You might not think so because you have Black friends, or maybe you have a Black boyfriend, but there are things that are just embedded in your brain that you have to undo before you can really say that. I read another quote that said, are you a consumer of this conditioning? Meaning you're not the creator of this conditioning. So when we call you a racist, we're not saying that you created racism, but you're definitely a consumer. Karen is a prime example. I'm going to call and tell them a Black man, you buying into this. When you're watching the news and you see a Black boy running from the police, and your first instinct is to say, or getting beat by the police, and your first instinct to say is he must have done something wrong. If that would have been your white son, is that the first thought that would have came to your mind? It's in your mind. You're conditioning to think a certain way about us.
We're all conditioned, which unfortunately even Black people are conditioned to feel a certain way about ourselves, and it's so sad. But did you see the case where I think it was in LA, where it was a diverse group of people. They called the police because some looters were trying to loot this store. Well, the police finally came and they let the looters get away because the owners of the store were Black. So they had all of them, the owners of the store, that they were trying to protect their store. They had them all in handcuffs and against the wall. And everybody's telling them, no, not them. They're the owners of the store, the looters. You know what I'm saying? So automatically you just think that the Black people are the culprit.
You automatically go to them. I mean, that's a prime example. Even when you think about how these white men who came out with their big guns and flags at the governor's mansion, inside governor buildings, in their face during this pandemic, yelling and spitting at them, there was no aggression. Then you see a Black boy with both hands up being pepper sprayed.
And they fear for their lives.
So why are you so conditioned? Right, and they fear for their life. Why are you so conditioned to treat us differently? It shows in almost everything, even in the way that we work. I mean, the way I see it, whites they don't care about restructuring. You know, if it's an inconvenience to them. So basically, if any part of this change makes their life inconvenient, then they feel like they're being oppressed, and so they come out and they speak up. And like even now that we are loud and clear about we are not going back, we are done with allowing this to keep going on the way it's been going on, is speaking to this police brutality. You got white people speaking out like, oh, you guys shouldn't be out here rioting. You guys shouldn't be out here protesting. This is an inconvenience for them. It's an inconvenience. You know, it's not, oh my God, an innocent man's life was taken senselessly live on television for the world to see. I'm so sorry this happened. What can I do to help? We can't keep this going. Oh, this is an inconvenience. You guys are coming into my stores. You're making it difficult for me now. This is an inconvenience.
Mm-hmm. Even with the stores here in town, Walmarts are closing early, stores are closing early, and people are angry at the fact that the stores are closing early due to possible looting or whatever, but not, like you said, not addressing, like, why are these people looting? Why are these people out here? Why are they screaming this way?
Yeah.
You know, why are they expressing themselves in this way? And it's because of that just fed up of the inhumane treatment. But yeah, people don't want to look at that.
No,
they just want to look at their, like you said, they're inconvenienced and they can't go to Walmart right now.
They're inconvenienced. Another thing Jane Elliott said is that if you say you don't see color, you're racist. So I thought that was a good point, you know, because people try to be blind to the fact that this is a social construct. Shout out to Shanta, who said racism is a social construct. And we look at people and judge them based on that. Why do you think affirmative action went into effect? Because we could not just go walk in based on our qualifications to get a job. We had to put laws, we had to legislate something that says you have to let so many Black people in here in order to stay in business. And so people started counting, okay, we need 3 Black people to stay in business. We're going to hire 3 Black people. Not, okay, let's just get the best qualified person in here. Racism is in full effect. And who are the white allies? I know a lot of people are saying they checking their social media now and looking for their friends, their white friends, to see if they're speaking out. One thing I do find very interesting is if you are a white woman or a white man who has a Black child, meaning you had a baby with a Black man or woman, being a white person, yeah, I think that you should be speaking up. And like I said, I don't necessarily try to point the finger and say just because you're not speaking up doesn't mean that you don't have a vested interest in seeing change. But the more people speak up and speak out, see what happens, change happens. And this could be your child. You know, you may think that because your child has white blood in him or her, that the police are going to say, oh, no, his dad's white. Oh, no, his mom's white. No, all they see is Black. It's all they see. They see the hue in your skin tone, and they already have a mindset about how they're going to treat you based on that hue in your skin tone.
Right, because nobody in America will say President Obama, it was 50% white. That just doesn't come out. But the man is 50% white.
Right. Listen, if you got Black in you, I mean, even science teaches us that once you get that Black drop, you Black. You know what I'm saying? But that's the same thing with, you're right, with Barack. Think about Colin Kaepernick too. Now people want to take knees, and I'm supposed to feel soft-hearted for him. Oh, look at that's so sweet. Y'all taking a knee. How come y'all not talking about Colin Kaepernick? This is what I'm talking about with racism conditioning, though. Y'all was hating on this man so hard, he can't even do what he loves to do, which is play pro football, amongst his peers, because people said that he was disrespecting the flag, even though he stated that was not the case, even though other people spoke up for him and said that was not the case. He was advised by a former veteran that, he asked, what can I do to bring awareness to police brutality without being disrespectful? And he was advised to kneel. And so that's what he did, respectfully. And they went in on him. White America just thought he was being most disrespectful. Oh, you disrespecting the flag. Mind you, you got a president who, forget the flag, he disrespected the Bible. He holds the Bible upside down. He do any and everything to disrespect the United States. He's even talked down about our U.S. Army, Navy, Marines, Coast, all of them. He's talked bad about our military, period. Mm-hmm. And he still don't get the backlash that Colin get. Now, though, you have white people getting on a knee, taking a knee, and nobody is saying Colin Kaepernick's name.
Because that's what they want us to do now. But it's too late. We're beyond that. It is above us at this point.
I agree. Why aren't they mentioning Colin's name if you're not racist, though?
Because then they would have to admit that they were wrong. This
was his movement. Why? What happened?
Then they would have to admit that they were wrong.
That's what I don't understand. I just don't understand.
And people still feel that way about Colin Kaepernick. I know you heard Drew Brees. Did you hear his whole? They asked him what he thought about Colin Kaepernick, and he says, "Oh, I'll never respect anybody that disrespects the flag," and yada yada yada. But guess what? He had to come back and apologize for that and say, "Oh, Black Lives Matter," and yada yada. Because it's like, dude, you still don't understand
flag than you do about a human being. Mm-hmm. We still at the bottom of the list in your eyes. We still at the bottom of the list. Dogs beat over us. Remember the dog that got some dummy put a dog in the overhead in the airplane? I think it was less than 4 days. Legislation was changed. They made it a law that you could not put your dog in the overhead in the airplane, the compartment. 4 days, that's all it took. No protests. It was just dog. You saw dog. Was it endorsed? Go ahead.
So there should definitely be a law that a police officer cannot put anyone in a chokehold. That should be a law.
Yeah. And shout out to Las Vegas, who I'm noticing now that they are trying to make some changes, which they should have done, because we lost a man to a chokehold. What was that, back in October a couple of years ago? Remember that story? Mm-hmm. That was, I think it's Bellagio or somewhere. I can't remember the whole the names and the dates off the top of my head, but I do remember this man losing his life to being in a chokehold by a police officer. And so I did read that they are making some changes. I didn't go into the details to find out what those changes are, but yes, I did see that. So it's a step in the right direction, but I need to see what that is. Mm-hmm. So, all I'm saying is, where are our white allies? So, there's a book I would recommend checking out by Dr. Robin DiAngelo. It's called White Fragility. That might be something of interest to our white allies to read, to get an understanding of, how racism is, conditioned into us. And just one more point to this before I move on to talking about the protest and discussing, are we letting our kids protest, and, how do we feel about that? Another way of conditioning in the workplace is when I think about Black History Month. I know that in most environments, we do Christmas, we do Easter, we do all the holidays that last a day. Black History Month is 28 days, 29 in some years. And I know a lot of workplaces, just doing a survey, they don't do anything. Mm-hmm. And we even do St. Patrick's Day in most work environments. But when you say, hey, what are we going to do for Black History Month? It's crickets, because it's uncomfortable. What's so uncomfortable about Black history? I mean, that's how you've been conditioned.
A lot is uncomfortable about Black history. A lot is uncomfortable.
And so we should just let you be comfortable in not having to discuss the history of us here in America.
But then never forget about 9/11. Never
forget
forget
about
that.
9/11.
But we
They want
should forget about slavery. And
yeah,
we should
yes,
forget about the inhumane treatment, and we should forget about all of the lynchings, and we should forget about, the beatings and the killings and the murder that this country is known for. And then they want to know where this violence comes from. Well, guess what? This violence was learned
yeah.
behavior.
Oh yeah, for sure, without question. I mean, these people that came over here and stole the Native Americans' lands were looting and rioters. Okay, they
No,
they were
and
thugs and
rapists,
lawless.
and rapists.
Right, rapists. They were thugs and lawless, and they did, and that's not talked about. Instead, we celebrate by having a turkey and dressing and making it about family instead of addressing the uncomfortable truths. And
Yeah,
talking about Black history isn't just about being enslaved, because
correct.
hell, the stoplight outside is out there because of a Black man. A lot of innovative things have come to a peanuts. You think about all the things that you use peanuts for, peanut butter and so forth and so on, the inventions of a Black man. It's hair products, we use so many things. We are the fabric of this country, and we are treated like we should not be celebrated. And I just
Mhm.
wanted to say that is a form of racism and conditioning when you exclude us, when you include um, Santa Claus, you include, even when you even include Cinco de Mayo, but this is United States, but we celebrate the Irish culture. And mind you, I enjoy celebrating all of these holidays. I mean, it gives me an opportunity to drink and eat and
Yeah.
laugh and be joyous, and I have no problem with it. But the problem comes in when you say, well, hey, we got a whole month of Black history, and then you get crickets. Nobody knows what to do with it. Why are you so uncomfortable? It shouldn't even be an issue. So that's just another point that I wanted to make in reference to that, because it's real. It's really real. So the other night when I decided to just detach myself from social media because I was truly overwhelmed, our 19-year-old came to us and asked if he could go out and protest. And that really triggered me. I felt so many emotions about it. My immediate answer was no. Well, considering everything that was going on, a boy had just got hit with a pellet in his head and was fighting for his life, seeing how they was pepper spraying people and pushing around elderly and the young and just beating, not just arresting them and just walking them away, but they just dogging people out there.
Mhm.
I just couldn't let it happen. And the other thing was, it was after 7 o'clock, and we know nothing good happens when them lights go out in the midst of a protest. We've seen that, there's provocateurs out there, and all I could do is envision him getting caught up in that and not having any protection or someone to defend him. And it was it was hard for me to say no, because my attitude, you gotta fight for what you believe in. And his argument, he like, me and my friends want to go. And, he had a very valid argument. He said, if I could be just driving down the street and they can kill me, then I'd rather be protesting and they do this to me. And I was like, I can't argue with you about that, except
Yeah,
I have to be the responsible one who's lived a little longer and seen a little bit more and make a conscious, rational decision, even though what he was saying and what he wanted to do was not wrong. And I just want to know how you guys feel about it. Do you have kids that want to protest? Would you allow them to protest? What are your thoughts on it? So you can share them on your Facebook Live or YouTube, your comments.
My son has not asked me that. He's only 13, and he hasn't asked. He hasn't really expressed an interest in it at all whatsoever. But if he asks, I would go with them.
You would go out? Yeah. So you wouldn't deny them. You just say, let's go. And
I
then with
mean,
the
but
pandemic,
like you said, we would go at a certain time.
right?
You know what I'm
That
saying? We're gonna go in the daytime. We're gonna go. I would set
yeah.
parameters around it, but um, we definitely wouldn't probably go late at night and things like that. But I would definitely allow him that experience.
And then it's
But I
important. Yeah. Okay. So anybody else, I want to know, are you allowing your kids, if they come to you and approach you and ask you, can they go out and protest? Are you allowing them to go? Would you go with them? What's your take on it? I think another thing about these protests is you have to be responsible. These aren't things that we plan for. We don't say in 6 months we're going to go protest. They're triggered by whatever happens in the now. But even still, we have to be strategic and surround ourselves with people who are familiar with protests. look to our elders to guide us in reputable organizations that know how to protest. The reason why that's important is that you see, again, I'm going to shout out Joe Madison because he mentioned this before all of this happened. Watch out for provocateurs. And that's all you see. You see slabs of bricks at the corners. Where were the police at when they was dropping off all these bricks? When you see white people dressed in all black, busting out windows.
Some of the police did that. I'm just saying.
Right.
They did. And, so that's where they were at.
Right. And you have to be with people who are used to seeing this because this isn't new. This happened in Selma. This happened in other protests during our time and our parents' and grandparents' time. So they know there has to be still a strategy. You have to be on the right street. You don't want to be somewhere protesting that's going to lead you to a dead road right into the lion's den. You see, you got to have the right type of medical equipment, pepper spray, people getting pepper sprayed and tear gas. You want to have the right type of, medical equipment to be able to treat these people. And, it's very important. And then if you do get arrested, you want to be aware of the groups that can help get you out. Because there are groups that help to fund people so that they can bail them out. All of that is important. So even though it's a little radical and it's, what do you call it? Just when you just do something right away, like just
impulsive.
Impulsive. It still has to be strategic, and that's one of the things that I want to reiterate to people. It's definitely important, and there's more than one way to protest. Calling your senator's office, blowing up their phones, voting, blackouts, not buying where people are in support of your interests. There are so many different ways. Hitting people in the pockets is the worst way. That's how a lot of laws got changed for us as Black men and women, hitting them in their pockets. When we did that bus boycott, that affected bus companies. They weren't getting any money. We get on them buses,
So let me ask you this question. Did you give him other ways that he could protest? Like to make phone calls or whatever? I mean,
in general, we just spoke to there were other ways to protest, but we had talked about it before where I did mention, there's different ways to protest, but we didn't really go into it. To be honest, that night was just very overwhelming. After that, I just needed to go to sleep and detach because I couldn't think anymore. My brain just turned into mush.
No, I get it.
It doesn't seem real that I have to deal with so many things. We're dealing with a pandemic, dealing with joblessness, we're dealing with police brutality. We're dealing with so much hurt and pain. And then, we have our personal things. We still have our day-to-day lives. We still have family members that are struggling. People are, succumbing to this COVID-19. It's so much going on. And when you think about all the things that are going on, it's like the straw that broke the camel's back for me when I had to tell him he couldn't go. I didn't have anything left at that point. And, it was upsetting, I will say. But there is a protest app. It's called Bridgeify. You can check that out to get more information for those who are interested in, ways to protest or to fund the protest movement and things of that sort. So that's a good thing. Our president, though, this man's launched 17,000 National Guards into the U.S. That's more than they launched in Syria and Iraq combined to fight against us. And we're fighting against police brutality.
And there are people that say he's not racist.
They still believe he's not racist.
There's some Black people that believe that,
I know. I don't understand it. But like I said, the conditioning is real. It's not just, it's not just Black people. Yeah. And shout out to Danielle who said, I am personally boycotting Taco Bell, Pizza Hut, and Wendy's right now. They just donated $200,000 to Donald Trump's re-election campaign.
Wendy's said that they did not do that. Check out Wendy's. And then they also contributed money to Black Lives Matter or Black organizations. They said that they did not. I don't know how true that is, but I haven't had a chance to read, up in it yet. But Wendy's is denying that they supported him or any other.
Yeah. Listen. Amongst these protests I've seen on social media, they got the signs up. One that really triggered me, and my sister had sent this to me, and I was, I don't know if that was her sentiment at the time, but it triggered me because I had seen it before. But it said, "We are not our ancestors." A Black girl holding the sign up, and it pissed me off Y'all know how I feel when y'all talk about my people. I'm very defensive. I know what we've come through, what we've been through, and that history allows us to be ignorant sometimes, right? But don't disrespect my ancestors. The reason why you here is because of my ancestors. You understand what I'm talking about? We've been
We
revolting.
stand on the backs of them, and their backs are strong. Their backs are strong.
I mean, do the knowledge. I would encourage anybody to go to PBS or look up Dr. Henry Gates Jr. He does a lot of history on just Black history, period. But he outlines a lot of the protests that took effect here in the United States and outside of our country during, the enslaved revolts and things of that nature. There was a Stono Rebellion, which was the largest slave revolt that ever was staged in 13 colonies, and this was back in 1739. And it was only about 20 slaves under the leadership of a man named Jimmy. He provided whites with a painful lesson, I'll say that, about the African Americans' desire to be free. And so they went in and fought, and lives were taken. In the end, they did not. Obviously, they still were enslaved. And those who were part of that revolt, which was about 50 or more of those, were executed for that revolt. So we've been revolting for a while. There was a German Coast uprising in 1811 that was right outside of New Orleans. And that was right maybe 7 years after the Haitian slave revolt, where 25 enslaved people rose up and attacked the plantation's owner and family. They hacked them to death, and the owner's sons, and tried to escape. Of course, you know what happens next. They went after them, and other people were hurt too. And again, they did some lynchings and hangings to these people as well for revolting, for being enslaved. We've always been fighting. Keep that in mind. Since day one, we have been fighting a battle I believe that we will win at some point. But again, we had the Haitian Revolution, where these series of conflicts between 1791 and 1804 between the Haitian enslaved people and colonists. It was armies of the British and the French colonizers and a number of other parties. And what they did is they won their independence from France, and thereby became the first country to be founded by former enslaved people. So there is a positive thing that happened. Now, what's happening to them now, the outcome of that is what racism does. People don't want to see you on top. They don't want to see you happy, even if it's not affecting you. Because my question is, I said in the beginning is, these people that are fighting for us to stay oppressed are so fearful of us doing to them what they are doing to us.
Right.
So they want to keep us oppressed for that reason. And again, I'm not condoning, the killing, but listen, sometimes, all is fair in love and war. Let's just be honest. All is fair in love and war. There's going to be casualties either way you go. Violence begets violence. And that's just the way it is. We got the Black Panthers, civil rights activists. And then again, we talk about different ways to protest. Consider also that, you can, again, fund these movements. Aretha Franklin did that. Madam C.J. Walker. These people went out and made big bucks, and they brought it back to their community to help fund the civil rights movement and movements going on during that time. So consider that as well. Oh my.
Definitely. It's needed. It's necessary to fund it, So that's definitely a nice way to also support the movement.
Yeah, I agree. So, I just wish people would educate themselves before they start talking down against our ancestors, because people, shed their life. What George Floyd is his life, was a sacrifice for us to go on with this movement. The difference between a moment and a movement is sacrifice. And, we can't let his life just go in vain, because his life represents all of these lives that are just being taken from us senselessly just because of the color of our skin. They think of us less. They look at us being worthless, and that's not the truth. And we know that. We're not going to allow them to make it seem that that's okay, that they can just treat us like that. No, you can't. I know it's heavy, you guys, but I just needed to get that off my chest and speak up. I appreciate you, Ms. Trish, so much for joining in.
Of course. Thank you
And
for the conversation. It needs to be had, and I hope that you and I are able to have these conversations with our white allies, or not. Maybe they're not, but I
yes,
would like to have a race relations,
I do.
conversation. So let me know if you have that. I'll definitely let you know, because the conversation needs to be had.
More than anything, I would love that. And I just want to close out with another quote that says, "We will win in the end because we are the only ones who are willing to fight to the end." Love y'all. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday.